artists like the Dinah Ross, Aretha, Chicago, Doobies, Darius, Earth, Wind and Fire, Gladys Knight, Steely Dan, Kemps. I've had everybody. And people that I would have never dreamed that would become my friends. Tony Bennett's of the world, Michael McDonald. I've got Smokey coming up this year. And really, I've been fortunate enough to have almost anybody you can think about that's been a great legend. Not my wildest dreams, but we are, and it's flourishing. And it's, again, bringing people a lot of joy.
Welcome to another episode of Musically Hitched. I'm your host, Zach Reynolds Jr. We're here today in Charlotte, North Carolina with a staple, a veteran in the industry, a major contributor to entertainers at large, Mr. Larry Farber. Larry, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you at Middle Sea Jazz.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. The venue is fantastic. It's my first time here. It won't be my last, but thanks for the invite and thanks for joining us on Musically Hitched today.
I'm honored.
So your life has been a life dedicated to music. I have known that for some time. I'm glad for our listeners to get an opportunity to hear your story because it is an incredible treat. So let's start with your journey. You are a musician, you're a businessman, entrepreneur, a community advocate. Where did this start for you? How did you know that music was the path that you should take?
I think, sometimes we talk about genetics, DNA. Luckily, on my mom's side, we had a lot of musicians in our family. My Uncle Jack was a band leader from Philadelphia, played in South America. Wow. And as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, I would go see my Uncle Jack, sit on his lap as he would play the piano for me. You didn't realize then that was forming those impressions on me at an early age. His daughter, by the way, Davida Oberman, became a great violinist and played with, believe it or not, Elvis, Wayne Newton, and Doc Severinsen. So it was in my family. My Uncle Lou on that side of the family was a great dancer in Hollywood. So I grew up and knew that music was in my family. And I felt it, and it was a part of our lives as kids. When I was 12, one of my friends moved down, became a great friend from New York. One day after basketball, I walked in his house and there was this baby grand piano. We were a very modest family, so we didn't have a piano. Sat down and I just started hitting the keys, went home, told my parents that I really wanted a piano, that I truly wanted to learn how to play. And literally the next week, they bought my first piano, and sort of the journey began from there.
That's awesome. So you're 8, at that time you were how old again?
12.
So no experience prior to that, just saw the piano,
Knew I wanted it. Yeah.
And what did your parents say?
They were supportive because, again, music had been in the family. And they bought this piano that, by the way, Zach, I couldn't sell it. So almost 58 years later, that piano resides in my oldest son's house, waiting there for his daughter, my granddaughter, to one day play.
Wow! I
couldn't sell it not only because it was that first piano and the just memorabilia, but there was a great pianist named Peter Nero, goes back decades, and he became friends with our family. Came over our house and he signed it. Practice, damn it, practice. Peter Nero. And so again, for me, that inscription meant so much to me that I just couldn't see selling it and giving it away, even though it may be the 100th piano that I've seen and bought between bands and playing. It's just one that is near and dear to my heart. And even behind us on stage, I have my first Fender Rhodes that I can't sell, and a couple of Yamahas, Kurzweil. I have a hard time. People collect cars. I collect pianos.
Yeah. So did you start getting formal training soon, and parents buy in and say, hey, you need to get...
They did, and I think my first teacher, Ziggy Hurwitz, started taking lessons from him, and he was the guy that taught a lot of great band members around Charlotte. And he taught me not only about piano, but about life. Nice. And he was the one that really instructed me to learn it, to enjoy it, to make it my vocation and enjoy it, but not to make it my life's work unless I got into the business side.
Right.
Because he told me that as both a piano teacher by day and a musician by night, that it was a rough life.
Right.
And he said, Larry, I think I want more for you. And I took those words to heart. And although I started playing in bands shortly after that first piano at 12, I literally had a band when I was 13 playing "Oh, When the Saints Go Marching In."
Wow.
And then at probably 14, I played my first job for a little bar mitzvah in Charlotte, and it was for $20, 4 members. We made $5 a piece. You don't forget that. But that $5 felt like $5,000.
I'm sure.
And it got me going in the right direction. And then I played in bands in Charlotte, Beach, Motown, all the way through school, Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
I had a band. I was the guy that didn't get to go to his own prom. I was the guy that didn't go to any fraternity sorority parties because I was driving the highway to Athens and Atlanta and up to Virginia.
You were playing these parties.
I was playing the parties. So I really, truthfully, never experienced any one of my proms, which was okay because you felt more like the star when you're on stage and all your classmates would see it. But I did that really basically through college. And then when I got out of school, that's when I got on the business side of it.
So this love affair started early for you. So how did you navigate that when, peer pressure is a real thing, right? And either you like that attention or you don't. Did you find that you liked the attention that your classmates were giving you? Were you validated by it, or were you just like, I'm just going to do it whether they like it or not?
I was validated about it because, I was an average athlete. I played a little tennis, a little basketball in junior high school, but I wasn't going to be the guy that was the star of any of the teams. I was just, the role player. Mm-hmm. So, but I knew I had a little bit of a little talent in music, and that I could excel there, and that would give me that pride. And so it did. But more than that, what you found, as you found playing, is the camaraderie created by your friends and fellow musicians. Right. No different than a sports team. You look around, and if your bass player isn't doing what he needs to do, then just like an offensive tackle, you can't run through those holes, or the drummer not laying down the groove. Then no matter what I'm playing, it just doesn't come together. So you're part of a team. It's just a musical team.
It's a team.
And I loved it. And, I never really played much solo kind of piano. I always was playing with a group, and I loved it. And that's what I miss more than anything now. When you've done it for most of your life, it's still great that people go, oh my gosh, Larry, you have a jazz club, you can get up there and play a tune. That feels good, but what I miss now is those people that were my bandmates.
Yeah, right. So out of all of the bandmates that you just described, were you the only one that made a go of it professionally, or did any of the others stick with it?
No, probably of that whole collection of musicians I play with over my life, there are still, I'm sure, 10 to 20 people really actively playing. There's a woman named Robin Springer, great jazz, R&B singer, marvelous. And she sings here at Middle C 8 to 10 times a year. My drummer and bass player still have a band in South Carolina. They're playing part-time just to keep their licks in. My guitar player, a local guy named Greg Hagel, who literally was with me in one of my first bands, is still playing in a duo. So you appreciate this more than anything, and we say it, it's cliche, but it's true. It gets in your blood, that's right. You just can't give it up. And it feeds your soul.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we hit the college years now. So did you study music in college?
Now, I studied at Chapel Hill, like you. I was a psych major with a minor in music. Mm-hmm. And so I took a few music classes, but I had every intention to follow Ziggy Hurwitz's advice and not make music my life. So I got into law school and was literally preparing to go when I graduated in May of 1973 from Chapel Hill. I was going to go to law school and got in, and then decided I wanted to take a year off. And then I went to work for a man named Ted Hall, who had Hit Attractions. Mm-hmm. He was sort of like the godfather of all of the people that are in the business now. And my intention really was to work a year and see if I liked it. dip my toe in it. But I wanted to keep my spot in law school because I felt like I would be a disappointment to my parents and to not pursue being an attorney, be a doctor, be an accountant. And but I dipped my toe. I liked it, and then at the same time, I resurrected my band, so I started playing a few gigs.
Nice.
And then, crazy thing, about 8 months into that journey after I graduated, I opened a beach music club in Charlotte. So I was multitasking, and I realized after a year there was no chance I was going back to law school. I tasted just a little bit of success.
Right.
I thought it was a lot of money back then. It really wasn't, but it felt like to me. But then I said, you know what? This is for you.
Yeah.
You know, this really is your calling.
Right. So are you still playing music at this point, as well as you're dabbling in the business side of it now? But are you also playing as well?
Well, it's mostly business. We have a night here once, probably every 3 or 6 months. Most of the people that work here for me love music and play music, and have. So we'll once about every 6 months get on stage and play, and so I can still keep my chops up.
Oh yeah.
I have a baby grand piano at home that I'll play a little bit, but I'm not playing professionally anymore. I stopped that about 3 or 4 years ago,
Right.
and I say that because I'm proud of that part of it, because I know now I don't treat the musicians that come out from behind that stage any differently than I want them to be treated.
That's right.
So they feel the love and warmth, and they know it's different. And I wouldn't be able to be as good an owner had I not been a player, as you know, and I mean that.
That's very true.
And the people here, our staff, know that I want them to get the best of the best. I mean, I don't mean to be compliment myself in any way, but there was a musician that played here a month ago, and I went up to her afterwards, and she was incredible. And I went, I know how much we paid you, and I know how much you had to pay these sidemen, and I know you came from Florida, and I know you flew here, and how did you make any money? And she said, I didn't. I just didn't price myself well. And when she told me what she made, I went, that's not right. And I gave her a bonus enough to make it right. And she said, nobody would have done it. I said, look, I don't care. We made a bad deal, and I want to make it right because I want you to come back here, and I want you to know that we did well with you. And at this point in my life, and I mean this is not about money. Whatever we make here, we're basically putting it back into making the club nicer, bringing in bigger name artists, paying ourselves back for the investment. But nobody here is going to make a huge return, much of any.
Since this is such a hard road, I think that's an incredible story, and you're a man of great integrity. Not many people would do that, and that probably took her back like it did me. But I know you, and I know that that's something that you would do. But how do you help, let's say, that lady, another gentleman who's in the same boat? What does she need to know the next time around? What would you recommend to up-and-coming musicians that want to make a go of this, that want to make a living? They're musically hits, just like you and I are. They want to sustain themselves, even raise a family on music. What deal-making points would you give her if you sat down with her and consulted her one-on-one?
Yeah, I've always said that most musicians I know, most of them, are underappreciated and underpaid. But you really have to make sure that you have a good business model, and that when you're putting a group together, that you're paying them a fair amount, whether they're playing it locally or they have to drive and get home at 3, 4 in the morning to stay overnight. And you can't and I say this because I was part of the largest agency in the really country, you can't let any agent talk you into doing something that you're not being fairly compensated for.
True.
And so if you get that model right, you figure what your expenses are going to be and put some dollars away for the unexpected, then you can play, enjoy it, and make a few extra dollars. But I think if this is your only profession, then you've got to supplement it with some other work during the week, or being part of your church, band, or teaching. You've got to sort of take charge and make sure that you've got a good financial model. In other words, don't be naive about all of it. Make sure that you've got a sound plan before you delve into this part of the business.
Are you ready to take your entertainment career to the next level? Contact us today at info@moreentertainment.com to schedule your personal consultation or music business coaching session.
Right. So no matter what angle, whether someone wants to be a DJ, if they want to be an artist manager, if they want to be a stage manager, tour bus driver, there's always something that you need to be aware of in order to stay musically. You've got to be focused on how do I make money.
Right.
It does have to become a priority at some point. Otherwise, you'll never make any.
Right.
And then you've got to continue to refine your knowledge and skills, and then just apply it and see what happens.
That's right. That's right.
So you've gotten into booking bands at this point, and then you're a college student, supposed to be in law school.
Right.
Now we're ditching law school. So what happens next?
So I got the job with Hit Attractions, the guy that used to book my bands growing up, and I started as an agent again in 1973. Also doing some other things, playing in a little club, and I realized that this was something I really wanted to do, and I didn't make again a lot of money back then, but I loved what I was doing. And for me, Zach, what I realized after 10, 12 years working for somebody else, that, and this has sort of been who I am anyway, I wanted to control my own destiny. And I took a step back and decided to become an owner, whether you own your own band or you own your own business.
Right.
And I had confidence that I could do it. And so I'm a risk taker. Not a wild risk taker, but I try to weigh the risk reward of things. And I go, and you hear this again, you have one life to live, but I'm never afraid to try and lose, but I'm more afraid not to try. And so the first few times you try and something doesn't go well, you can just get back off the deck and fight and work hard, and I have. But I've realized that whatever the challenges are and obstacles, there's always, the fun part is trying to find solutions. So just opened this club November of 2019. The club is just off and running after 3 months, and then COVID. Right. And a lot of people would have just closed the doors, given up. But I put in the streaming. We did broadcast here for people until we could start having people again. We changed the model a little bit. We spread the tables out and had fewer people. We treaded water until things got better. And I knew that if we kept the momentum and we kept the spirit and faith and trust, that it would turn around. Yeah.
Isn't that similar to what real estate investors do? The real hardcore developers. The market goes down, and what do? They buy
more when it goes down.
Yeah,
they reinvest, and they just know things cycle, and they're just not afraid. Look, I look at the numbers every night that we're open, and I not worry. I just look every night, and even though we've become profitable and really on a higher trajectory than I anticipated this soon, I'm still not satisfied, and that's part of who I am. I'm always trying to think of a new night. What kind of music can we do on Wednesday night that will be exciting? What kind of theme can we have on Thursday? Because what you learn in anything you do, you just can't put a band on the stage. You've got to, there's got to be a catch. And there's got to be something that's going to appeal to a diverse group. Again, for me, when I look out in the audience, I want to see everybody out there, a cross-section of our community. And so I'm very conscious of that and program that way, something that I feel that during the week, there's going to be something in this club that you're going to love. There may be nights like I brought Dave Brubeck's sons in here, and they're more art and jazz fans. Yet I've been bringing in some of the, the liquid pleasures and surround sounds and, big swings and Party in the Moons and more of the regional. Oh, I don't call them wedding bands, but our R&B crossover bands. Yeah. And we're doing that on Thursday nights, and people are loving it. And it's not jazz; it's just our fun music.
Yeah.
It's music. I mean, in essence, that could be middle C music.
Right.
But I started it because I wanted this to be a home for jazz, and thankfully, with the Marion Meadows and some of the Gerald Albrights and Jonathan Butlers and Mesa and the people that I'm bringing in. I'm overwhelmed that and honored that these people now know that Middle C Jazz has become a destination in this country for jazz. Just like the Blue Note in New York and some of the other places, this has become a stopping point from here to Atlanta to Florida.
Fantastic. East Coast Entertainment, one of the largest agencies of its kind in the country. How does that transition occur? You're with Hit Attractions up until East
Yes,
Coast?
so truly from in 1973, Hit Attractions was 3 or 4 times larger than East Coast.
Really?
East Coast was was a small agency in Richmond only. Dennis Huber and Steve Thomas had started it. And Hit Attractions was sort of the deal. And we had a staff of about 10 agents. I, as I said, in 1986, just knew I wanted more and had become friendly with Steve and Dennis. And most of their business was in Virginia. And we were doing some in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee. And I went to those guys and just decided that I wanted to, do my own thing.
Okay.
And I said, look, guys, I'll open a Charlotte office and it'll be East Coast Entertainment. You stay in Richmond. So at that point, we had Richmond and Charlotte. And then I hired Ed Duncan, who was working for a competitor in Charlotte, and John Ross. And so the 3 of us basically opened the Charlotte office.
Nice.
Subsequent to that, Steve Thomas moved to Atlanta. And then we had Charlotte, Richmond, and Atlanta.
Okay.
And then, of course, the rest of the story is history. There's now probably 14 to 15 offices that East Coast has out there. But originally, there was Richmond and Charlotte, and then Atlanta.
So East Coast then was not East Coast as we know it now, as you said. Though, did you have to put up your own money to start the Charlotte office? Was it more like a partnership, or did you actually go all in yourself and just say, I'll run it from here?
I bought into their entity in Richmond,
okay,
and became partners with them. And then as Steve and I became equal partners.
Gotcha.
But I was running the Charlotte office,
okay,
along with the Ed and JR at that time.
So how many years in East Coast when you're semi-retired now?
Well,
so.
I retired, and semi is the right word. I retired December of 2019, but there were a few clients that wanted to continue to work with me that were big festivals that I booked, and they pretty much told the company if I left, this isn't an ego, it's just they have a choice to go work with other people, because the bands that I work with and buy for them are not East Coast exclusive bands. They're the Tim McGraws and the big names. So, but it's about a relationship I've had with them. And so I still handle a couple of things for East Coast. Most of it now runs through the folks at East Coast, especially Charlotte. And then, but what's interesting, Zach, is, and this is not an exaggeration, every week, without a doubt, at least one call a week is from a former client that did not know I retired, that needs a band, or the son of their son needs me. So I'm constantly referring business back to the company, and I'm glad of that.
Is there any way to quantify how many dates you may have booked in your career? Just one. Did you actually? I know it's been documented and through the company, but if you had to put a number on it, what would your guess?
Well, it's in my book, Noted Memories, and so I tried to do a little math. I looked and I said, okay, 1973 to 2019, and I did the math and said that's 46 plus years.
Yes.
And then I would say, okay, I was booking 20 to 25 bands minimum a week. So if you do the 25 bands a week times 50 in a year, that was, what was that, 1,000? And then I went, that's almost 50 years of booking. So I said it was north of 50,000 jobs.
Amazing.
And that's a lot of jobs.
Wow. And that's a lot of musicians employed.
Yes, and
feeding families.
Thank you for saying that, because again, because I'm a musician, because I was the same guy at the end of the night, we divide up the money, however we divided it up. Yeah. And whether you were paying the light bill or I was going back to college and spending it on just something that made me happy, what I realized is that so many people that I play with and so many people that I booked over the years, they were surviving with that money. And that there's not a better feeling than knowing that in some way you're responsible for that. You know, there are other agents, and again, this is not, it's just the truth. They look about how much money they're putting in their pockets. And I just never looked at it that way. It's not that I didn't want to make money, have a great lifestyle, be able to feed my family, do the things that I wanted to. But I knew that, you know, if you go to, if you're working at a department store and you sell a piece of clothing, and you're paid a commission, you're going to make a few bucks. But I knew when I made those few bucks, I was making a lot of money for those other people. And it's just something that I loved. Yeah. Still feel good about. Every night when the people leave here, I know, because I pay them, that maybe that bass player made $250, $300 tonight. Maybe the drum, and it really makes you feel great.
What makes a great partnership?
It really is about trust. It is about respecting each other's strengths. It's about knowing each other's weaknesses and not trying to make yourself feel better because you're better than one person because you can do this. It's also being part of a team and knowing, you know, maybe I'm the guy that could book 3 times as many bands as the next guy, but there was a guy behind me that was supporting me and making sure that all the contracts were done right, or the logistics, or the computer technology part of the business was going on. So you've got to put people together on a team that don't all share the same strengths.
Right.
It's like, again, a football team, that offensive lineman, the quarterback, the running back, they have different skill sets. And the same thing in business. Having different skill sets, knowing how to take your ego out of it, knowing how to build trust, knowing how to compromise when you have differences, and knowing how to, to be fair. Yeah. I remember, final part of this answer, my grandfather, I've said this before, he used to always say to me, remember, Larry, the 3 F's. And I said, what was that, Pops? He said, be fair, be friendly, be firm. So that, to me, was how we maintained a successful company. And by the way, wouldn't fool anybody. There are a lot of bumps. There's some turbulence there. Yeah. Things happen. People get angry. I get angry. Don't handle myself like I should. But you learn that you have to have that kind of relationship to be successful.
What would you say was one of your biggest challenges that you had to endure in the business, in the entertainment world?
A lot of people think that they should be paid more than the next person, and finding a way to navigate that and sit back and really understand that how you value and compensate each other. And if somebody does make $5 more or $500 more, that if the tide rises for everybody, then you're all doing well. Yeah. And the worst thing partners can do is just bicker and fight amongst themselves, just no different in the band.
Right.
Our business. What did you make? The trumpet player asked the saxophonist. And you might be making $200 more than any other band, but because that guy made $25 more, he quits. And maybe that person's value such that he's loading in the equipment or whatever it is. But those are things where trying to get out of each other's way. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies.
True, very true. You went on to do some pretty extraordinary things, and you worked with some of the who's who in the music business. Talk to me about music with friends. Why is that a passion of yours? And our listeners, I'm sure, will be intrigued by the mission. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's to really till today is something I'm proud of. A lot of things I've done. My family's the most important thing, but this idea, this epiphany of creating a private music club where we bring these world-class legends into the most intimate venue, and it's a country club for music lovers where before the show goes on, there's a wonderful cocktail party, and then these artists like the Diana Ross, Aretha, Chicago, Doobies, Darius, Earth, Wind and Fire, Gladys Knight, Steely Dan, Kemp's. I've had everybody.
Amazing.
And people that I would have never dreamed that would become my friends, Tony Bennett's of the world, Michael McDonald. And they sit in where we started in this intimate church that was transformed into a theater. And there's 600 people there, up close and personal, getting to hear their music, hear their stories, and be there amongst your friends. And the idea just took off. I was able, this vision I had, I was able to share it. People, they loved it. And at one point we had 4 cities going, Charlotte, Nashville, Houston, and Charleston. Sort of post-COVID, we have Charlotte and Houston going, 2007. So we're now in our 15th season.
Wow.
I just had John Fogerty, and he was great. I've got Smokey coming up this year, and really I've been fortunate enough to have almost anybody you can think about that's been a great legend. And so it's a lifelong pursuit. We went through challenges before COVID, we went through an economic crisis, but again, we've kept it going. I never dreamed, not my wildest dreams, but we are, and it's flourishing, and it's, again, bringing people a lot of joy.
How do people become involved? Is it, you mentioned it's for?
Yeah, so it's a private membership club. You join, and you own a seat, you pick out a seat, and that you join for a year, and you pay a seat fee, so you own that seat, just like in really sports stadiums,
yeah, right.
a PSL. And then there's 3 shows. You pay a price for the 3 shows that include everything: your food, your drink, your parking. And we poll our members. They help pick out the artists that we want.
Right.
We reach out to people. People know about us. We don't market publicly. It's not a public show. It's private. And so, and it's just for a very small group. And I don't want to say exclusive group because we're very inclusive. It's just exclusive in the sense that it's a defined group of people that their priority is music. Where you spend that discretionary dollar is always up to you. You may be a season ticket holder in soccer, baseball, football, hockey, or you may go, I want to be a member, season ticket holder for the arts, for theater, for drama, for dance, for opera, and in our case, for an intimate, up-close and personal music club.
Right. Well, some of the artists, these are legacy artists, so to be able to capture these performances, all the performances videoed, or is that something that you stray away from? You just want that particular group to get it? Or?
They're very highly sensitive about the video portion because the rights just to the video alone would be enormous. It's like Austin City Limits that does, I'm not comparing to Music with Friends, but they do a small venue kind of show, but it's done for television for those marketing purposes. Not to say over the last 15 years, I haven't had people that have come to me that wanted to do the same thing, but we never quite got the model right. So,
what are some of your passions outside of music? Music is obviously, a labor of love and business for you. What do you do when you're not making music?
Well, I love golf. I've taken that up in the last half of my life. I also love sports, so I love going to professional basketball and football. Really, really, really love Carolina basketball.
Go Heels.
And I loved it until the last shot of the finals this year. But I'm truly excited about we got everybody coming back.
Amazing. Yeah.
And so Carolina basketball is one of my favorite things in the whole world. And, I care about and love my family and love that time. And they're the ones that probably have suffered the most because of just my insatiable desire to continue to be creative. And I've explored, it's a blessing and a curse. And in some respects, it's been a blessing of all the people that I've met and things that I feel like I've accomplished. The curse is I don't know when to stop. And that's, it's like I feel like as long as I'm breathing, I'm still dreaming and creating.
Yeah.
And sometimes that puts pressure on me to really know when to say, all right, enough's enough.
For those that are trying to balance the music business and family, what tips would you give them?
Well, I would, with some regret that I've had for not doing it the right way, I would say follow your passion. But, your family has to come first in that time. But if you're taking care of your family and you're giving them the love that they need, then they're going to encourage you to do what you love, because that makes you a better person to be around. But just don't do it at the expense of the people that you're closest with.
Right. You have sons that are working with you in the business. That seems to be your legacy. Obviously, is going to continue long after you're gone. What do you hope for them?
For them to follow their dreams. Luckily, my oldest son Adam helped me find this location. Has helped me every step of the way with Middle C Jazz. But his primary job is as a commercial real estate. Again, so much like we were talking about part-time musicians.
Yeah.
So most of his money, 98% of his money, comes from that endeavor. But he watched his dad in music, so he loves Middle C Jazz. He loves being part of this.
Yeah.
So he's been great. My middle son is a neurosurgeon. Went to Carolina and Duke Med, and he's in Phoenix in his 5th year of residency. So he doesn't need any of this music. And my youngest, Reed, went to North Carolina as well, and loves music. And after Chapel Hill, started working for East Coast Entertainment. And I say this, you think sometimes Dad would say this, and you think you're just saying it to say it. But Reed is really learned I feel like he's the best of his parents, and he has my drive. He's learned a lot, but he's way more organized, and he's not as hyper as me. He's calmer, and I think it will serve him well. But he genuinely grew up in a family that loves music and a dad who loves music, and hopefully I've given him shared values about taking care of the musicians, and so I already see it, and not only see it, I hear it, because whether it's you telling me or I mean this, customers or bands, they go, we really love working with him, and so I'm really proud, and I think that I know if he desires and loves it, he'll be a great addition to East Coast or anything he does.
Yeah. If someone else is looking to get on the non-performance side of the music business, would you recommend someone pursue this path? Would you recommend that people get into booking bands and representing musicians? Is there a shortage there, or is it already taken?
I don't think there's ever a shortage. I think you can book all kinds of different acts and genres. I mean, as I was telling you, I didn't know all the agents and managers that represented just the jazz performers that I didn't book at East Coast Entertainment. And there are hundreds and hundreds of them that just are in that world. There are hundreds and hundreds of agents that deal with performing arts venues, like I said, booking classically trained ballet dancers or opera. So it doesn't just have to be anything within the arts. There's lots of different paths. And I say to those that may be listening or thinking about it, just explore, think about what you love, and if you're on the booking side, make sure that you have a passion for that kind of act or music, and that you're a good salesman and that you really believe in it, because a lot of times I interview people that just say, I want to be in music, and they were, well, we want to be an event planner, and I would try to explain to them what event planners do, or what we do, or what managers do, or what people on the technical side do, or recording industry. Under that umbrella, there's a lot of things you can do. You just have to know that that's your love and your passion.
Two questions again about booking agencies. How do booking agents get paid? And then, in your opinion, what makes a great booking agent?
Well, most are either get paid one of two ways. They get some kind of guarantee and then bonus based on meeting their performance goals and perhaps company profits. And then some agents just purely work on a draw versus a commission. And they may get a draw, and then if they hit certain numbers, then they really get these back-end commissions. And some could just work on commission only. And so you sort of eat what you kill. And so there's really that formula. And then if you get in it and you're a partner, an owner, you're not making commission. You're just you're making profit. If you got to pay everything else, all the bills,
right,
all the people that work for you, and then like any business, what's left over is what you make. And then the second question was,
great booking agent. What makes a great agent?
This is what I think. I think when I used to get on the phone with somebody, first of all, you really have to be genuine. You need to really be knowledgeable about your product, be able to sell yourself. Most importantly, let them feel comfortable that you know what you're talking about. Create a relationship with that person that you may have never talked to in 3 or 4 minutes. Learn about them, find out what their tastes are and things. And then, if you conquer those first two, they trust you and believe in you, and then you sell the product. It's not like if you got on the phone and wanted a band, the first thing I would say was, you should book surround sound. You want to find out what's important to them for that night. Find out about them a little bit. Tell them about yourself. And then at the end, it makes it so much easier because they trust you. And don't sell a band that makes you the most money. Sell the band that's right for them, no matter if it's a band that's half the price. And I would have so many people, Zach, say to me, Larry, what would you do? And I would go, look, if you have all the money in the world, this is the band I would book. But I will tell you, if you close your eyes, that this other band sounds just as good, and your guests are going to love them just as much for half the price. And I think when you're honest, they really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, you have documented your story in memoir form. Tell us about your book and what you hope readers will gain from reading.
Simply, during COVID, I challenged myself to do something productive. And what I realized is I was fortunate enough to have been in a career where I met people I never thought I would meet.
Right.
I had experiences that were unbelievable, and I had disappointments and overcame them. I created new kinds of businesses, and I wanted to share that first and foremost with my children, grandchildren, so they would know what I did long after I'm here. I thought the story would be interesting because it was about a lot of famous people in crazy situations, and while it's about music, it's really also about life. And I didn't know how many people would like the book, or I didn't know how many people would find it interesting, but it's been way more rewarding than I ever thought because so many people have called me and told me how much the book meant to them. And then on top of it, it was sort of an unintended consequence. We've taken the proceeds, the net proceeds, and given it to a group called Arts Plus, and they're helping kids that can't afford instruments,
Fantastic.
get instruments, and take lessons. So again, it's about giving back to the community.
Awesome. Well, where can people find your book?
It's in the bookstore here, Park Road Books. It's on Amazon. You can go right to Middle C website, and the book's there. Or you can come right in our club sometime, and we'll sell it to you. But there's a way to find it between all those sources. Thank you for asking.
No,
and this has been great. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being on the show. You're again a life well lived, and you're a servant to those in the music community, but the community at large. And it's just an honor to know you. I really appreciate it.
You're kind. It's an honor to know you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
This has been another episode of Musically Hitched. We hope you've gained a lot of value from this. entrepreneur, businessman, family man, entertainment agent. He's a lot of things to a lot of people. I'm glad to know him and call him a friend. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Musically. We'll see you on the next episode.
If you enjoyed today's content, be sure to like and subscribe so that you'll always be notified of new episodes.